It's time again to recap the latest news from the solar industry, compiled by the American Solar Energy Society. I'm Jay Warmke with SolarPVTraining.com, and this is the news from the solar industry for the week of May 4th. Well, according to a recent survey that was conducted by Lawrence Berkeley National Labs, those people living within 3 miles of very large solar farms are actually quite positive. In fact, positive attitudes towards the farms outweighed negative by a factor of about 3 to 1. But larger systems above 100 megawatts, the negative factors won out by a factor of 12 to 1. So size actually matters in these. This was the result of surveying about 984 people in 38 states. Now, some of the findings here showed that they were positive generally, but there were some takeaways that developers should take note of. One is there was concern that the residents had not been informed of these projects until construction was actually underway. The second thing was they would really prefer to see these projects developed on already developed land, such as industrial sites or landfills versus farmland. And the third one is they absolutely did not believe anything that the developer or the government told them about the projects. When you think about clean energy, Minnesota is typically not the first state that comes to mind. But according to a recent report from Clean Energy Economy Minnesota and the Business Council for Sustainable Energy, for the fourth year in a row, Minnesota generated more than half of all of its energy from zero carbon sources. Now, this compares with a national average of around 41%. So Minnesota's far and away ahead. Now, some of the takeaways from this report were that renewable sources capacity is about 1/3 of the Minnesota grid. The state achieved a 10% reduction in carbon emissions in the energy sector in 2023 alone. And that EV registrations, electric vehicle registrations in the state, rose a whopping 55% over the past year. Microsoft has penned an agreement with Canadian asset management firm Brookfield to develop the largest corporate power purchase agreement, or PPA, ever. In fact, it's 8 times larger than the next placed corporate power purchase agreement. Now, PPAs typically are when a firm enters into agreement to buy power from a developer, solar or wind, largely to reduce the cost of their electricity or also to meet some of their corporate low emissions goals. Now, this agreement will add about 10.5 gigawatts of solar capacity to the grid between 2026 and 2030. And it's estimated that it's going to cost in the neighborhood of $10 billion. CEA, the Solar Energy Industries Association, released its report of the top 5 states for solar installations in 2023. Most are not surprising, but there is one surprising state in there. Texas was ranked number 1. They actually had installed 15 gigawatts over that year, which, to put that in perspective, that's about the same as was installed nationwide in 2019. California has dropped to number 2 because of some of the changes in their net metering. Florida, number 3. Colorado is in 4th place. But the surprise was Ohio jumped up into the top 10, placing at number 5. They actually installed about 1.3 gigawatts in the Buckeye State. And it looks like this is going to continue for a while because Ohio ranks 3rd behind Texas and California for the number of projects that are in the pipeline over the next couple of years. In fact, only about in 2020, solar accounted for less than 1% of all of the generating capacity on the Ohio grid. It looks like by the end of this decade, solar is actually going to surpass coal as the number 2 generating source for electricity within Ohio. And for the first time since the 1990s, the amount of energy on the grid produced through wind actually declined. So why did it decline year on year when about 6 gigawatts of wind capacity was added to the grid? Well, it's basically a factor that it was not as windy in 2023 as it was in 2022. In fact, wind speeds in 2022 were sort of at an all-time record, and wind speeds 2023 actually were less than average. The capacity factor, which is when you take how much power was generated divided by the maximum capacity of the wind turbine, in 2022, it had hit an all-time high of 35.9%, and 2023 it actually dropped to an 8-year low of 33.5%. And that's the news from the solar industry for this week. We'll see you next week.